What I'm going to share is something heavy in my heart. And my prayer is, as you listen to what I have to say, you'll take it seriously. Because I'm really going to talk about the marks of a leader and marks of a revivalist. And I wanted, I thought, let me share a little bit about myself. May 1977, in a small town called Danishpet in Salem. I'm not sure how many of you all know. 48 years ago, I came to know the Lord. 48 years ago. I still remember Danishpet with Pastor Sam Kamaleson speaking. We went in as a youth group, and my life was completely transformed. It's been a long journey, so what I'm going to share is not a one-day journey, two-day journey. It's a long journey. And Pastor David, you understand. We're not fly-by-night ministers, pastors, leaders. We've tasted, we've been grounded, we wept, we sacrificed. But something beautiful happens, isn't it, Pastor David, when you give it all to God? And the birthing of a revivalist took place in my life the day I accepted the Lord. It was something just, my life was completely transformed. I know some of you all, and I see many Christians, there's no difference between the day you accept the Lord and the day after that and years after that. For me, it wasn't that. And I'll give you some other things that by His grace, what He's done in my life. It's just phenomenal in breaking me, molding me. But there was a cry within us, Pastor David, that just shifted everything. I mean, nothing mattered. Nothing mattered. From the time I accepted the Lord, nothing mattered. Because the reality of the God of the universe has died for me, and I know Him, shifted everything. I still remember in a city called Guntur. This is a few years after I accepted the Lord. Brother Dinagran and his group were preaching, and I had gone with a small group of people. We were fasting right through those 7 days and going in for those meetings. And the final day of the meeting, Pastor Dinagran had to leave because he was catching the flight. So he said, I cannot pray for anybody, and you guys have to, I'm going to leave. After the last song, he was gone. So people were waiting. And me and a group of us, like Raviana and a few others were there. And I still remember, I didn't even have my Bible in my hand at that particular point. But crowd suddenly turned to us and said, would you pray for us? I don't know why. And that was the Lord. And there was anointing for healing. Brother Dinagran had preached. And I saw some phenomenal healings. Phenomenal healings. A lady, a young girl with, who had polio and the legs were twisted, totally healed, started walking right in front of my eyes. Shifted everything in my life that a birthing of a revivalist started taking place. And when things like that happen, you're completely transformed. Completely transformed. I still remember we went as a youth group to, some of the stories you might know, we went to Marina Beach, and we were having fun. The day before, a friend of mine was trying to teach me how to swim, and I was going down like a rock. I didn't know any swimming. And he was next to me, and suddenly a huge wave came, and that's a place where they used to bring the boats into the water, and it was a huge pit, and all of us started going in. And the guy who taught me how to swim, he went down, and he was drowning. And people in the crowd started telling, swim, swim. And then he knew he could swim, and he went under, swam, and went. And I was taken into the middle of the sea. This is Marina Beach. And I was happy. I knew I was going to die. I knew I was going to see the Lord. And I was smiling. Actually, I was so excited because I was going to see the Lord. But I suddenly looked at myself, not a drop of water I had drunk. Not a drop of water. I looked at my hands, my hand was swimming. I looked at my feet were swimming right in the middle of the sea. I'm swimming. No control over my hands. No control over my legs. They woke up a fisherman, and he came with a big pole. He saw me, and he tried to come in to save me. By the time he came in, I put my feet down, I touched the ground, and I walked out. And I asked the Lord, why did you do that? He said, I kept you here for a purpose. Very clearly, I heard the voice of God. I'm sharing things that's happened in my life that these 48 years has made me a different person. Sheila and myself, we used to go to, with our youth group, we used to go to Marina Beach to preach the gospel. A few of us, young people. All we do is we take a guitar and we sing a few songs. That's all we did, Bhamini. Just some of the songs we sang in Tamil, and I remember speaking in Tamil and English. In 2 minutes, you give the gospel. In 2 minutes. Because when you sing in India, those days at least, I don't know how it is today, crowds come. Crowds come. All of a sudden, there's a crowd around you, and in 2 minutes, you give the gospel. You preach the gospel. I still remember one of the guys who came in, he had a note where he was going to commit suicide. That particular day, he was touched. He gave his life to the Lord. I wasn't a great speaker. I never preached like that. But seeing the hand of the Lord is crazy. And I still remember the guy, I got into the bus from Marina Beach going back to Kelly's Corner, to where I lived. And there's a guy who came and sat behind me. And once the bus started going, he said, I heard your message. I want to listen to you again. I want to talk to you again. And he said, there's a guy in my office who's a good friend of mine. He says he's become a Christian. And everything's changed in my life. And I hear you. Can you tell me a little bit more about Jesus? And I was able to lead him to the Lord. I'm sharing my journey of becoming, I call myself a revivalist. I do call myself. And I'm sure many of you all have had instances in your life that transforms you, Pastor David. Like, I mean, here's the man of God. I'm pulling him because here he was up in his work. He had everything, left everything, to a place where he couldn't even feed his children with food. But he knew the call of God was huge. He found a pearl of great price. When you find a pearl of great price, you suddenly forget about everything else, and you become a revivalist. You start living for a cause which is much higher than what anybody lives for, and your life is absolutely transformed. There are instances in my life. I'm sharing my journey of the transformation. Why do I love the poor? Why do I work at Scott Mission? Why did I work in India and Mexico? Why did I leave my secular job as a chartered accountant? It happened one evening while I was trying to catch a bus. And in India, when you have a wedding, you have that, some of you all, I'm sorry, I'm from India, I had to talk about India, and that's where God touched me. They have a garbage bin, a cemented garbage bin outside, and when they have a wedding, they bring in the leftover food and they throw it into that with the leaf. And I still remember a little girl running to get the food of the leftover, and a dog also ran behind that food. The dog won, and the little girl couldn't eat the food. A few things happened in my life, that particular point. One of the things is I will never tell my mom or anybody else, this food is bad. Touch me. I will never complain about any food. Then I said, this can't go on. There's got to be justice. Somebody has got to stand on behalf of the poor. Somebody's got to take care of somebody, who cannot. This little child, somebody has to take care. And the birthing of a revivalist to bring justice to those who don't have was birthed inside of me. Giving you a little bit of a journey. You might be sitting the whole day if you sit with me in my walk with God. But I have the reason I'm calling myself a revivalist is because I want to see revival. I want to see transformation. I'm not living for the present. Till I die, I will live for a greater cause, the cause for which he died for. Having said that, can we look into the book of Nehemiah? You with me? You guys okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to just share. It's not going to be fire and brimstone. It's just going to be just sharing my heart on what the Lord spoke to me through my devotions. And if you don't believe me, you can see the notes in the Bible. This is what I wrote this week, and what God spoke. And I'm literally translating this into a PowerPoint and sharing what God spoke to me. Can somebody help me in reading Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1 to 4? Otherwise, I'll call you guys up. Who's the youngest? Come on. Come and read. Savita's daughter? Or you? Come here, Mark. Are you okay to read? Come. Just the 4 verses. Chapter 1, verse 4 verses. Go ahead. Are you okay to read? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, in the mountain of...
No. The words of Nehemiah.
Okay. In the words of Nehemiah, son of...
It's okay.
Okay. In the mountain of...
Can I read it? Are you okay?
There's something in my throat.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Ma. Give a hand for her.
I was going to read, but then
That's okay. Let's look at the scriptures. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. Come back to me about the aspect of words of Nehemiah. I'll come back and maybe share a little bit about that. If I forget about that, keep that in the back of your mind. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burnt with fire. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I moaned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Let's go into a slide, and I want to talk about the 2 marks of a revivalist. The 2 characteristics, go to the next slide. The 2 characteristics that sets apart a leader. The first thing is they question. You look in this particular passage in Nehemiah chapter 1. I was in the citadel of Susa. Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some others, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, those who survived the exile are back in the province, are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burnt with fire. The 2 characteristics about a revivalist and a leader is, first thing is they question. Here he questions, they're coming out of exile. He's talking about the people coming out of exile. They're coming out of captivity. They're coming back to Jerusalem. He questions them about the disgrace and the trouble that they're going through. And what he hears is the walls are fallen down, the gates are burning. The walls are has fallen down, the gates are burning. Walls, talks about security in the city is fallen down, and gates is where the leaders sat and made decisions. So the 2 things that's happened is the security has fallen down and the leadership has fallen. The gates are burning, the walls are fallen down, and the people are in trouble and disgrace. And he questions them. And I tell you, the first thing I want to talk about that Lord really spoke to me about, leaders initiate questions. Let's go to the next slide. The whole aspect of, if I were to do a research in your own life, and today you can do it, and if I go into your Google search, what is your search going to be like? If I were to look at your chatter that's happening in social media, whether it's emails and Instagram. It'll be interesting to find out, what are you questioning? What are you trying to find out? A lot of us might be trying to find out what's the best car, maybe where can I get a job? What about my kids' education? The chatter and the Google search will tell me, what are you questioning? Here the gates has fallen down. And the gates are burning. And the walls have fallen down. A revivalist initiates questions. Initiates questions. And I pray the starting point for a revivalist is you start talking and questioning what's happening around. Many Christians can walk through certain circumstances, but a revivalist will not. Will not. When there are 10,000 people living on the streets in the city of Toronto, some of us can just hear that and keep walking away. But some people who are called to serve the poor will not keep quiet and ask the question, why is this happening? What are we going to do about it? When transgender kids, more and more kids are getting transgendered and going through surgery, many of us can just walk through, but a revivalist will not walk through. He will say, 10 years from now, how are these kids going to manage? Will they look back and say, what happened to my life? Why didn't anybody take a stance for me? A revivalist will question. A revivalist will not be centered around his own life, his own car, his own job, his own, there's a questioning a revivalist will do. When more people are coming to the daycare, and that's where I live in, and when one out of every 10 people in Toronto goes to a daily bread fruit bank, when all of a sudden 3 million people are going into food bank, I will question what is happening to the economy, what's happening to the families. Even with 2 income, people are not able to manage. What's happening? What is the answer to this question? A revivalist will not keep quiet, but a person will ask questions. I've met revivalists, I've met different types of people, and I move in a group of people that are not living an ordinary life. Dave Toyson is one of them. Dave Toyson is the CEO of World Vision. He was the CEO of World Vision for 18 years. He's a revivalist. He is 76 years old. I met him recently, and he started talking, Shelley, about what's happening in South Sudan. He started talking about what's happening in Congo. He started talking about what's happening in Somalia. Because he's a revivalist, his heart is churned. He said if the U.S. aid is dropped, how many people are going to suffer? How many kids are going to not have food? That's a voice of a revivalist. He is 76 years old. He's got a beautiful house in Mississauga. He's got a family. Why can't he just keep quiet and sit and have a blessed time? Go to church, pay your tithes, be in the worship team and come out. But a revivalist will start questioning things. Bob Pierce, who started World Vision, one of the phrases that he uses in his prayer is, break me, God, break my heart with the things that breaks your heart, God. Break my heart with the things that breaks your heart. Have you ever wondered what's breaking the heart of God? Have you ever wondered what's happening in the spiritual realm? Not in your realm. A lot of times, even as we prayed this morning, a lot of times we have our own issues, we have our own problems, and nothing wrong with it. There's major things that's happening in our lives. And the enemy can keep us distracted. We are cornered in thinking about our own personal stuff. But God is saying, can you get out of that? And can you come and ask me what's going on in my world? Can you join me in what's happening in my world? Rather than being stuck and trying to get me from that world into your world to answer some petty problems here. And my prayer is there'll be a birthing of revivalist. My prayer that you will not live an ordinary life. He questioned. Nehemiah questioned. Leaders are curious. And I'll tell you, curiosity is one of the ingredients of a great leader. They don't just take no and as an answer. They'll ask, why not? But what about this? Why can't we do it this way? That's a curious leader. And a curious leader will be a very innovative leader. He or she will find solutions to a problem which everybody else passes by and says, it cannot be done. So what if this happens in Congo? So what this happens in South Sudan? It doesn't bother me. I can sit in my citadel in Susa and not be bothered when the walls have come down and the gates are burning. When the tsunami hit Sri Lanka, when many of us are just watching the television and seeing the tsunami hit, and maybe sitting and praying. You know what Dave Tyson did from World Vision? He already got into a plane. He jumped into a plane, going straight into Sri Lanka. He wanted his boots on the ground and he wanted to be right there while we are just watching the television. That's a revivalist. They just don't watch. They just don't pray. They're just not in the worship team singing. Sorry guys, I'm not talking about nothing wrong against the worship team. But I'm praying a birthing of a revivalist will happen. You start questioning. You start questioning. You don't sit back. You don't sit back. You don't, and I tell you, when you question things that hits hard, and you know you're anointed for that. You're not anointed for everything. You're not anointed for everything. But there are certain things you're anointed for. You're anointed for. Don't sit back. Don't sit back. There are certain, as I said, there are two things that I'm anointed for. One is taking care of the poor. I know that. Till I die, whether I work at the Scott Mission, whether I'm a pastor, it doesn't matter. I started that even before they gave me any title. Until I die, my heart will be for the poor. My heart will be for the poor. No doubt about it. The second thing is I know those who don't know the Lord are going to hell. And I will do everything to populate heaven and depopulate hell. I'll do everything. Everything. Those are two things that I'm passionate about. In that context, God has given me leadership skills. God has given me certain skills. I don't have skills in singing and worship, but I have other skills. I'll use every skill, every influence, everything that I have. Not for myself to make any more money. Not myself, to pay off my debt. No, everything for His kingdom's sake. Everything else will come and follow me. And I pray that'll be a revivalist. That'll be a journey of a revivalist. He questioned. He questioned. He questioned. Can I say something? It starts by saying he was in the citadel of Susa. He's sitting in the palace. End of that chapter, he says, he was a cupbearer to the king. You could be driving your BMW. Nothing against MO driving BMW. Or, you can be having your mortgage paid off. You could be in a place of influence. Your position does not deter your passion. Hear me again. Your position does not deter your passion. Don't get comfortable in your position. Don't get comfortable that you're not bothered about what's happening in Somalia. I have certain Google, notifications I had about Netherlands because God placed Netherlands in my heart. I have certain notification that comes to me so that I can pray, I can discern, I can know what's happening. So that I'm not concerned about just sitting in my house, paying my mortgage. I'm mortgage free. I've got this house. My kid is getting married, so I'm fine. Don't be comfortable. Don't get comfortable, especially in this Western world. Don't get comfortable. He had influence. He was with the king. He was the most trusted person. He could be comfortable in that place. And because he was so close to the king, he had other kings he had access to. When you're in that position, why bother to build the walls? Why bother to take care of the gates? Why bother to get into a place where there's more work and more trouble? But that's where passion comes in. That's where a revivalist becomes different. The first thing is he questioned. Can I keep going? Go to the next slide. I'm going to read what I wrote, and these are things which really struck me. I've written 4 things, but actually there's 5 things. In this particular verse, it says, when I heard these things, the first thing is, he sat down. He sat down. I tell you, a lot of us need to sit down. A lot of us need to just sit down. We just need to sit down. Stop everything. Stop everything. It's time to focus. Cut the crap and cut the clutter. Just cut it. Sit down. Sit down. Where's my phone? Get off this. You're overstimulated with information. Cut it out. Cut the clutter. Sit down. Let the Spirit of the Lord work in you. Am I right, Pastor? For the Spirit of the Lord to work, your spirit has to be subject to the work of the Spirit. Sit down. The world will go on. You're not the answer to everything in this world. Don't worry. Position yourself. When God moves, when you hear, when the Spirit of the Lord works in you, the first thing is he sat down. The second thing he does, he weeps. He weeps. Can I ask you a question? When did he last weep? When did you last weep? I still remember when in London, East London, when I saw the crowds of young people coming in, standing in queue for an all-night prayer. When I saw the young people come in and started worshiping, and that was my cry. God, raise up a next generation. I wept before God. I wept. I wept because I knew as a revivalist, this is what I was longing to see. There are people in our streets, some of them dying because someone is not able to stand next to them. Mental illness is off the chart with our young people. You just look around, there's things that's happening around you. There could be someone in your office who might be in a place of trying to commit suicide. It's happening around you. If you've never wept, I want to ask you, are you a revivalist? If you still have dry eyes in the world we live in, ask God. I mean, I'm not telling you to go and weep right now. No, ask the Lord to move your heart, that you're able to weep. Because if you don't weep, Pastor, you've been a pastor for many years. I'm sorry I'm picking you up. It does not happen. You know, Jesus was moved with compassion. There's something that has to break within us, that there has to be a time of weeping for the world that we're living in. Only then the call of God starts getting fulfilled. Otherwise, it'll be another job that you go in. You look at the salary, you look at the benefit, you look at different things. When you start weeping over the things that's happening around you, you don't care about the finance, you don't care about anything else. You're moved by God. He weeps. Can I keep going? The third thing he does is he mourns. Weeping turns to mourning. In mourning, you start wearing ashcloth around you. You take your good garments off. You wear ashcloth. Mordecai did that. Mordecai was a revivalist. In the book of Esther, he wore sackcloth. And you mourn. You move from a place of weeping to a place of mourning. And ultimately, he prayed. The beauty of Nehemiah's life is he constantly prayed. Constantly prays. If you squeeze the book of Nehemiah, and I've tried to write many a times, what he does is constantly praying. Constantly praying. A man of God, not just when you start the mission, not just when you hear the voice of God, not just on Sundays when the call of God comes upon you, but you're a man or a woman who will constantly be in prayer. Show me the next graph. Next slide. I had to bring it, my mathematical brain and accounting brain, I had to bring in a graph. I hope you guys don't mind it. Many of us stay in the place of knowledge. And you and I can get so much knowledge. But if there's knowledge with no conviction, nothing's going to happen. You can have all your knowledge. Nothing's going to happen. Sometimes we are convicted. We have great conviction. And that conviction can rise. But if I were to ask you, what's happening in Myanmar? Who is the president of Myanmar? What is the real cause of what's happening in Myanmar? For you to know and not just be convicted to take care of people in Myanmar, you need to understand and you need to do research to find out what's happening. That's what he questioned. That's what he did. You and I need to get into a place of knowledge and conviction. When both these things collide and goes in, that's when number 10 comes in. A lot of us either sit with knowledge or sit with conviction. Both comes in. This is a two-dimensional graph. But in the third-dimensional graph, you bring in the curiosity in. My God. A curious leader is an innovative leader. You have both these things and you start asking the right questions. You start saying, how can this happen? How can I take care of the poor? How can I demolish homelessness in the city of Toronto? How can I feed more people? How can I transform the lives of the people who are coming from different nations into our city? You start asking questions. You start becoming that curious leader. You find solutions. And my prayer is not just knowledge, not just conviction, but there's a curiosity. Are you with me? I've just done 4 verses. And my prayer is you'll go through the book of Nehemiah. Let me just touch on a few things because I can be here for days. And I don't want to. These are things that God spoke to me just one morning. If you just go to the next slide. Let me say a few other points from chapter 2 of Nehemiah, and I'll close with this. He does the prayer, and it's a powerful prayer. If you study about the prayer in chapter 1, and then he says, give your servant success today. You know, a revivalist and a strategist will have timelines. Give me success today. That's how you pray. He goes to the king in chapter 2. It says, I have not been in his presence before. So the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? There's nothing but sadness in your heart. I was very much afraid. This is chapter 2, verse 2. Come down to, I was very much afraid. He's not supposed to be sad in the presence of the king. You're not supposed to be like that. If you're like that, you can get killed. You can lose your job. You can lose everything. First thing I want to say, being afraid is normal. As a leader, you will be afraid. God will throw you into circumstances you will be afraid. What you do after that is important. Can I get amen? You and I will face situations where we'll be afraid. And he was afraid. Go back to the slide. And, you know what he says? I was very much, let's go to verse 3. But I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my fathers are buried lies in ruins? That's a language of a revivalist. He's afraid, but he's speaking up. Why should I not be sad? See, the cry of a revivalist is when you're thrown into difficult circumstances, the Spirit of the Lord comes, your language changes. Revivalist language is a language of societal change. We speak a language where we want a city changed. We speak in a language where we want certain circumstances changed. We speak in a language with others don't, but you go to a place and saying, this cannot happen in my watch. And my prayer is there'll be revivalists that'll come out. Not just worship leaders, not just preachers, but people will transform a city. People will say, not in my watch, not in my watch. They just don't have zeal, but have a strategist. You know, when the king asks him, what do you want? What do you want? If God were to ask you, what do you want? What will be your answer? A strategist will have it all. He had the vision. He had timelines. He had resources. He knew exactly how to answer to the king. And my prayer is that you don't have just zeal, you don't have just passion, but as a revivalist, you'll have a strategy. My prayer is that happens. Again, strategy comes from the presence of God. As you spend more time in the presence of God, God will give you strategy. When the king asks him the question, what do you want? You know what he does the first thing? He prays before he opens his mouth. A lot of times we open our mouth and then say, God, do something. And God says, you already said it. You went your way. Go ahead. But my prayer is, and this is the beauty of Nehemiah, he prays and then he answers. He prays. He prays. Why? When you stand before kings, the Holy Spirit will remind you, will tell you what to say. There is a place where you need to lean on God, and all of a sudden heaven will respond. The language you speak will be different. The language you speak is what the king wants to hear and what heaven wants. They disturb the demonic. In the end of this particular chapter, chapter 2, you find Sanballat and Tobiah are disturbed. And from that point onwards, the demonic realm starts getting more and more and more. When you say yes to God, when you say, am I right, Pastor? Are you with me? This is real life, isn't it? As soon till you're fine with everything. Everybody loves you. Everything is going so well as long as you're not doing the will of God. The day you say, yes, God, you disturb the demonic. You wonder, what's happened? What happened? Why is all hell cutting loose? The demonic gets disturbed. And don't be afraid about it. Recognize that's what you're called for. Where am I? The favor of God separates a revivalist. The hand of the Lord was on Nehemiah. The hand of the Lord. And you'll find that throughout. And I tell you, when the hand of the Lord is upon you, and you will know the hand of the Lord is upon you, as you walk with God, you will know the hand of the Lord is upon you. This is not about goosebumps. This is not about laying hands and somebody falling down. This is beyond that. You know the hand of the Lord is upon you. Are you with me? Because you suddenly start saying some things. You suddenly start seeing doors open that you've never seen. You suddenly taken before people you've never thought you'll go before. Suddenly you'll find many things happen because the hand of the Lord was upon me. Am I right, Pastor? It's just ridiculous what happens when you step out to things that is God-sized and God tells you, do this, all of a sudden the hand of the Lord will be upon you. But if you don't step out, you'll be functioning away from God, doing what is possible by man. But as soon as you step out, that's the beauty of this whole walk with God. That's a joy I've seen. I've tasted the hand of the Lord. I've tasted. You can ask Sarah what's happening in Scott Mission. Many things. It's just the hand of the Lord. He shows up. He just shows up. They know hardship starts when they say yes to God. As soon as you say yes to God, hardship starts. And I do say that very boldly because there's sort of a lie. When you accept the Lord, everything is going to be great. You're going to be having the best house, the best thing, the best spouse. Everything is going to be so great. It's not. It's not. As soon as you say yes to God, that's when hardship starts. Are you with me? Chapter 3 onwards is beautiful. Can I give you a topic for you to study from chapter 3 onwards? Go back and study chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'm just giving you a glimpse of the first two chapters. But chapter 3 onwards gets into hard work. You know, building those wall and building those gates in 52 days as a leader was an easy job. But taking care of the people is hard. The grumbling, the many things. It starts with the high priest in chapter 3, verse 1, who first starts helping out. And he's one of the key culprits who creates a lot of problem for Nehemiah. Dealing with people is very difficult. But Nehemiah does it. He does it. If you want to give me I want to give you a topic from chapter 3 onwards for you to study, is bold vision does not build the future. Relentless execution does. Can I read it? Because he had the vision. He had the strategy. He had the letters from the king. He had it all. He had the vision. He had the strategy. The bold vision does not build the future. Chapter 3 onwards, hard work comes in. Relentless execution does. Jesse's not yet good. I can talk about Jessie when she's not around. She's done some relentless execution. And if you find out from Jessie, the word comes is excellence. Excellence. And it doesn't matter what your education is. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter whether English is your first language. It doesn't matter. It's not just the strategy and the vision. And I know men and women in this house who have performed well because of relentless execution. Relentless execution. That's hard work. When we went into television ministry, Sheila went into relentless execution. She wouldn't let go. I will let go after some time. I said, it's too hard. Forget it. It's the mundane. Let's go to something else. But there's a relentless execution. That's it. My prayer that revivalists will be born. Revivalists will be born. I think the choice in my own personal life, there was stages in my life, and it took a long time. As he sat with the Lord, weeping, mourning, praying for days, that is important. Don't bypass that. If you bypass that, your whole life is bypassed. But there is a place for you, once you know what God has called you for, you need to stay there. You need to stay there. That's where you have an intimacy with God. That's where the birthing of the vision happens. That's where you're willing to die. You're willing to die for the cause that God has called you for. And my prayer is, don't live an ordinary life. Don't let's be a person who comes to church, eats biryani, has good fellowship, celebrates birthdays, and walk away. I don't think you'll are called for that. You'll bring societal transformation. There is a world that's waiting for you. There are children around the world waiting for you. Would we stand? Let's just stand together.